What's going on, you guys? Coach here, and I haven't talking publicly about the Raiders in about more than a year. I figured I could go by the tradition and just talk about them through how the season is and the state of the Raiders. It's just, I guess this is a tradition I can't go away from. So I didn't want to speak about them in the middle of the season when they're winning or when they were they were 6-3 at one point. I'm not all jumping on a team when they're winning is not good. So I waited till the end, wait till it's all over, and wait till the aftermath and so on, and just getting these thoughts off my chest. I mean, fine, they moved to Vegas, blah blah blah. Stadium can't even have fans in it because we all know why. And then the Raiders go off to this hot start, and they look better than last year on paper. And oh, fine, they finish 8-8, but at the end of the day, this is a team that's still barely better than last year. It was nearly a repeat of the previous season because they started out, but fittingly, they were also 6-4, I think, the year before, and then they go on this collapse and lose most of their games at the end. I mean, you coming off this season, this is Gruden's third year. Okay, there's no excuses. This is your roster. I mean, Gruden has control over everything, over Mayock. He drafts everybody. He has the final say of everything from free agent signings and drafts. So it's his roster, and the defense looks like trash. It still does, and it was pretty concerning how all these games were getting close, like the Chargers that came down to a late stop. There were games that just came down to the wire, and it's not like the opposition was very good. There were some really bad losses in between, and it's really weird. They won their Super Bowl against the Chiefs. That was their Super Bowl, and after that, things went downhill once they lost to them in the second game, which most of us were thinking, okay, it sucked, but we can move on. We thought this team's for real. But nope. You go into Atlanta, you get destroyed. Luckily, that's not on national television, but they got embarrassed against the Falcons, and this team just collapsed like last year. Just continued to lose, play down. All those close wins, it comes back to bite you with close losses in the second half. If you keep winning close games against mediocre competition, you're going to be due to lose. It's a fact. You can win all your close games like 2016, but at the end of the day, there are some bad teams that the Raiders played down to. And I remember when they beat the Jets, it's like, I'm not even excited. You barely beat a bad team that was winless at the time, and if it weren't for their coordinator calling a dumb play with, 10 seconds left, I mean, it's really stupid. Really, really stupid. I mean, they didn't show up. Then they no-showed against the Colts. That was like a playoff game, let's be real. And then, of course, they lose these close games where the play calling by Gruden was questionable. They couldn't punch it in overtime against the Chargers. And then the Dolphins, there was that mess. You play for the field goal, you give up a play, you have a face mask. It's everything going wrong at once, and it's the life of being a Raider fan where I expect them to find a way to lose or find a way to keep the opposition in the game. It's boring. It's really boring and predictable when you know the ending before it comes. I don't get excited for the Raiders half the time because they can't take care of business against a bad team. The Broncos, they couldn't really take care of business against them. Though they did in the second half because their opposition was bad. But they had 3 games of the 8 games they won this year. Only 3 of them were where they were the better team without question. The first game against the Chiefs, the Saints, and then the Broncos game, the first one. Those are the only 3 times where that I'd call that a complete win, domination. There was no question who the better team was. Everything else, down to the wire, down to the last play, down to the last 5 minutes, they can't put away an opposition. I mean, I remember that Panthers game, week 1. They blew a double-digit lead, and they let the Panthers in it, and then they scored at the end and pulled away, but there was that brain fart by the Panthers. The call, was it a fullback dive? They were dumb enough to call that on 4th and 1. So, yeah, that worked out. I'm just not very excited when Gruden is having these conservative, predictable play calls and they take their foots off the gas pedal. They don't have a killer instinct, and this is probably the worst thing I have to say, is that Derek Carr, I don't think, is going to take the Raiders to the promised land. We're 4 years removed from his MVP caliber season, and he looked good in the first half, but that Falcons game, yeah, the worst thing about that Falcons game is that the defense was the best thing on the Raiders that day. That's the only reason the Raiders weren't blown out by even more points. I mean, the offense was flat. Everything went wrong. And that's on Gruden. Most of this is on Gruden because this is his roster. These are his guys. You blew up all the guys and got rid of all those guys you inherited you didn't want. Now the lights are on and your defense, the roster is still a joke. It's very below average, near the bottom, pass defense, pass rush. Everything goes wrong there. You didn't address that very well in free agency. You just signed what? 2 linebackers and they didn't really do much. You didn't really address it in the draft. These are all raw prospects. And the guys that you've drafted don't show any sign of promise. I don't feel a lot of optimism for Gruden. I don't. This is the can't teach an old dog new tricks saying. That's how I feel with Gruden. A lot of outdated plays, a lot of predictable play calling in the second half or sometimes in the third quarter or fourth quarter of a game. I'm not excited. I will not be excited until they learn to take care of business, maybe win some games. But otherwise, this team just has the ceiling of one and done. They'll get into the playoffs at 9-7, maybe 10-6, and then they'll go one and done because they don't know how to put together a full 60-minute game. They can play a 50-minute game. They can play a 30-minute game, sometimes a 55-minute game. I mean, that Dolphins game, I thought they were the better team, and then everything went wrong in those last few minutes, and then they collapsed. It's how do you find a way to lose? That's all I think about with the Raiders is how they're going to find a way to lose and blow it because they don't know how to play with a lead. It's boring. So it's sad. The work ethic, and this is probably the other sad thing, is that I'm learning from one of my sources in the Raiders organization. I know a guy who watches the practices. He's not a coach, but he watches the guys a bit, and I've been told that Damon Arnett, and Jonathan Abram, 2 of the key guys on defense that are supposed to be the future, they have a terrible work ethic. Abram has been looking like a bust on paper, and that's not a good sign. And his personality, from what I'm told, is as reckless as his play was this year. So do these guys really care? Are they motivated? I mean, Gruden has not evaluated guys who are hungry and wanting to win. And now you look at the rest of the league. I mean, the Cleveland Browns, they're in their 3rd year of Baker Mayfield. They've blown up their team a lot. Specifically, they've had a lot of coaching changes. But under year 3 of Baker Mayfield, they've won a playoff game and they deserve their way into the postseason. Buffalo Bills, almost a similar thing. They blew up their roster 4 years ago. They had a new head coach, new GM. They blew it up. They had to restart from the bottom, and they've been able to draft guys. I looked at the roster. 22 out of their 29 draft picks are still on the roster. And they've made some key signings to their offensive line and to the needs, but they've been drafting after the Raiders. Tre'Davious White was taken after Garyon Conley. Tremaine Edmonds, starting linebacker, was taken after Colton Miller, which Colton Miller's looked better as of late, but still. And then Ed Oliver was taken after Cleveland Farrell. So Buffalo has hit their first-round picks, and now Josh Allen, who looks like an MVP, great story. It's all about the many things that you got to do right, from free agent signings and draft. You got to do everything right, developing. Right now, the Raiders look like a mess because they're not drafting and signing correctly on the defensive side. He doubled down on the offense, and the offense has looked good at times, but I think Gruden holds them back. That's all they are. That's all they are is just mediocrity, and I don't get excited for mediocrity because you feel like you're there, but you're not there. Ask the Dallas Cowboys what they looked like under Jason Garrett. They were mediocre. They weren't good, they were not bad, they're just in the middle. Look at the 49ers under Mike Singletary. They were not awful, but they also were not good. They still found ways to lose, but they had the talent. It's just the Raiders, that's what it feels like. They have the talent, but it's not being coached right. It's not developed right. They're just a team that's in the middle, and you look at the division. The Chargers have a quarterback. Maybe they'll have the right coaching staff. They can be better. The Chiefs, this is still the Chiefs' division because they have Patrick Mahomes. Who cares about the rest? And the Broncos, they have a defense. Don't look at the stats. Their defense is better than what their stats tell you. They just don't have a quarterback. So the Raiders, you got an uphill battle. You got your work cut out for you, and you're supposed to win those games in the second half when all the tough competition was in the front, but nope. You went 2-5 in your last 7 games. So I just don't feel very excited about being a Raiders fan. It's the usual mediocrity. And even when fans come back, it's going to be corporate. I mean, yeah, fans might show up early on, but when this team is mediocre or just in the middle, I can't wait till opposing fans take over that stadium. I mean, it's going to be very, very corporate cash cow. And I hope Mark Davis is enjoying that paycheck, but I don't feel excited. I don't. It's a lot of it is because John Gruden is making $10 million a year, $100 million contract, and all I feel is the anxiety over that contract, just that he's getting paid so much only to not have a winning record, not have a playoff appearance in these 3 years. This was his team, and I don't see much progress. They just look like they would have been backed into 9-7, 10-6 at best. We talked about health, COVID. Everybody went through COVID. You can't use that excuse. We can't just say COVID killed the Raiders, because it happens to a lot of teams. Injuries, same thing. Everyone gets injured. Derek Carr was still playing most of this season, minus that Mariota game, and he looked flat once the second half began. It's sad. There's promise, but there's not promise. It's just mediocrity. On the flip side, you look at what the Buffalo Bills did, and I've already mentioned they've turned it around with the right players, but even so, their wide receivers prior to Stephon Diggs, nothing flashy. It just took the development of Josh Allen, a guy who's willing to work hard, stay humble. Josh Allen should have been the successor to Derek Carr at Fresno State, if you look at his story. He was humbled as a farm guy, very beginning. No offers from college. He was considered a doubter, and then he goes to Wyoming. He still gets doubted because he went to a mid-major, and look where he is now. He puts in an MVP caliber season in year 3, and that's the reason the Bills are 13-3 as opposed to 10-6. I mean, they already had a defense, which it's nice to know you can address a defense because Sean McDermott and those guys, it's a bunch of Panthers rejects, quite a few Panthers guys and other signings, but they've been able to find diamonds in the rough like Jordan Poyer, even a guy like Milano, one of their linebackers. There's a bunch of low-key pickups that have worked. Raiders, not so much. It's a bunch of scraps. It's a bunch of scraps and filler, and there's no long-term defensive stars that look like they're going to be there. And we just talk about how that guy was once traded to the Bears. So, can the Raiders be good? Yeah, with the right coaching staff. But John Gruden, I'm not feeling it. I don't know about you, but I'm not feeling it when this guy is sitting on it. They look like they play vanilla defense in the fourth quarter, vanilla offensive play calling, predictable running calls to Josh Jacobs, which they overplayed him a lot, but still, they don't put the game in Derek Carr's hands. They don't. It's out of there. Everybody knows the play you're calling, and it looks outdated. That's all the Raiders are until you start winning. I mean, 18 years without a playoff win. That's 18 years. Only 3 teams have a longer playoff win drought than the Raiders, and the Lions, the Bengals, and then the Dolphins, which the Dolphins may actually pass that soon. But the Browns and Bills both won this past weekend. So the Raiders' playoff win futility and that whole 18 years, we're still going. Still going. I'm waiting. That's all I see is mediocrity. It's not exciting when all these guys have to win with other teams if they want to win. Otherwise, I just see guys who are playing for a contract. Maybe Josh Jacobs. He'll sign a contract with someone else and start winning. So yeah, there we have it. We have individuals like Darren Waller. We have some promise on offense, but it's just not where it needs to be. This team is making a lot of money from their head coach, and it's not panning out. So we'll see what happens. Let me know what you all thought about the Raiders. I think I will talk about the Super Bowl when the time comes, but that's the state of the Raiders as mediocrity. Nothing to be excited about until they prove themselves. See y'all out later.